And welcome to today's episode of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, and boy, do we have a good show in store for you today. Today I have two experts in the ESOP field with me in the studio, and our goal is to answer this question: why, when, and how do business owners choose the ESOP path as the correct succession strategy? This show is brought to you by our advertisers, Center Club, Community Bank, Decision Toolbox, Executives Unlimited, MBN Design, S&H Rubber, Strategic Market Intelligence, Sunup Group, T & Company, Tone Software, Turn Up the Volume, and UPS Protection. The goal for this show is to help you, our listening audience of CEOs who are running middle market firms, to improve your decision-making skills. If you'd like to connect with me, I am on LinkedIn. Richard Rick Franzi, Franzi. CEO Peer Groups is my Twitter handle. And on your favorite podcasting software, simply type in Critical Mass Radio Show, and you'll get our regular weekly updates of the program that we stream live here on octalkradio.net. As I said, I have two experts in the ESOP field. Martin Staubus, who is the Executive Director for Beister Institute, is in one chair. Martin, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Rick. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Keith Molchan, who is First Vice President with Community Bank, a valued sponsor here at the program, is in the second chair. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Rick.
All right,
looking forward to this.
Let's get started with the three questions: why, when, and how. But before we start that, Martin, can you talk to us a little bit by kind of setting context? Can you define the term ESOP? What is it?
Sure, happy to do that. ESOP, ESOP, it stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan. To really explain what it is, it'll take me two answers. The first answer is the technical answer. Technically, it's what they call a qualified retirement plan. So there's a set of laws included in this body of law they call ERISA, and it authorizes a whole group of different kinds of retirement pension plans, and ESOP is one of those.
Right. I would think the people listening to our show, they're familiar with ERISA because of the 401k and the other retirement programs that they may administer for their employees.
Exactly. So structurally, in fact, it looks a lot like a 401k plan in the sense that every employee has their own personal account. So at this point, and I explain this, and I get a kind of a reaction. People are looking like, I thought this ESOP was really something, but it's just a retirement plan? Like the young people say today, so I'm not feeling you, Martin. Like, what's the excitement about this ESOP thing?
Well, retire.
So let me give you the second answer, beside the technical answer, and that is that ESOP is really something else. Forget the technical stuff. It's a way for an owner to sell their stock to their employees, selling their stock into a retirement plan. And there's some magic that goes on where the owner sells their stock, gets paid full fair market value, and yet the employees don't pay a penny out of their pocket. And how that magic happens is what we'll talk about today.
Wow, and that's Martin Staubus. He's Executive Director for Beister Institute with UC San Diego.
Exactly.
Right. And
at the Rady School of Management.
Rady School of Management. We'll talk a little bit about the history of Beister if we have time later. Keith Molchan, who's First Vice President for Community Bank. I wanted to kind of ask you this next question because we just heard that there's a liquidity event and a funding event that happens at the very beginning of an ESOP. What role does a bank like Community Bank play in that?
Well, a banker should be an advisor to the owner of a company. He should be one of their trusted advisors. And my first message to my clients and prospects is that you have to plan ahead for an exit strategy. Many times they don't like to approach that subject. It's the end of their good times, their company, and it's tough to get there. But just through experience, I've learned that if you don't plan out, you may be leaving some dollars on the table.
Okay.
Secondly, what is important is good financial information. Again, if you don't have good financial information, you may be shorting yourself on the valuation of that company. So I am there to help coach them build a better financial structure and better financial reporting for their company.
Okay. You're one of the specific roles that you play for Community Bank is kind of a thought leader in this. I know you write white papers. We're going to make that available later here on the radio show. But also, you're taking the responsibility as First Vice President to really oversee, at least here in Orange County, if not Southern California, the effort the bank is making in the ESOP arena.
That's correct. That's correct. And so it's a new tool for our tool chest at the bank.
Okay.
And we've made a concerted effort to go after this type of business in our marketplace. The marketplace is really not being served right now.
Okay.
In the $1 to $100 million companies.
All right, that's the people that listen to the show.
And that is a perfect avenue for us to set ourselves apart from any competition that might be out there.
So let's go back to the origin of the question. I'm talking with Keith Molchan. He's First Vice President of Community Bank. Martin Staubus is here as well, Executive Director for Beister Institute. when that decision is made and that first transaction happens, the liquidity event for the owner, what role does the bank play in helping the company sort of fund the purchase? How does that work?
Well,
at a high level,
how that works is that we're looking to. We need three things in this. We need cash flow. Cash flow is the key to any transaction. That's ESOP.
Okay.
Secondly, is collateral. In the stratus that we work in, collateral is important to the bank, but cash flow will help a shortfall in collateral, because cash flow will help pay that back at a quicker pace.
Right.
And then lastly, management succession. We have to have a good management team to have the sustainable cash flow to repay both the exiting shareholder and the bank.
Is it fair to say, Keith, that many times when a company decides to go through an ESOP plan, that the bank is putting some money in to allow the owner to be kind of paid out of the stock that they're selling to the company?
Most definitely.
Okay, so that's part of what Community Bank would do?
That's right.
Yeah, I can add to that.
Sure.
I talked about that magic of how the owner gets paid, and yet the employees aren't writing any checks out of their own pocket. And that's where Keith, a good bank like Keith's Bank, will come into that, where they can actually finance a good deal of that by making a loan to the ESOP. The banks look at it as effectively lending to the company. It's loaned on the company's credit, but there's where the money comes from, is from a bank loan, where that cash that's loaned ends up in the ESOP. The ESOP takes that money and uses it to write a check to Mr. Owner. Here's your money. So that's what Keith is referring to in terms of their credit analysis and what they're looking for to see if they're prepared to make that loan or not.
So to have a bank like Community Bank that's specifically focused in helping companies with this, because this is a little bit of a, maybe not a foreign concept, but it's not something that a company would have done before that necessarily, where they go to a banker to give me money for myself and the company will pay you back. That's not a good business practice, generally speaking, unless you're going through something like an ESOP, right? So there's a lot that they need to learn, and a bank that has experience.
Well, and that's where I was sort of coming from. The lead up to that point, if you're going to go the ESOP route, those are keys to it being successful for you.
Right. You got to have a well-run company.
You got to have
it.
You got to have it.
I mean, we're going to do a series of shows throughout the year on different subject matters, helping business owners understand succession planning, because I believe we're facing into a pretty large changing of wealth in the future, where baby boomer business owners are ready to take a little easy, take some money out of the business, and this ESOP program is a great vehicle for doing that.
Exactly.
Okay, we're talking with Martin Staubus. He is he's the director of the Beisler Institute, and Keith Molchan, who's the first vice president with Community Bank. We only have about a minute left until we take our first commercial break, so the first 10 minutes is already gone, guys. Doesn't it go fast? So let's just for a minute, from your perspective, Martin, can you tell me in a minute the kind of companies that make good prospects for ESOPs, just in a general sense?
Right. Industry-wide, it can be virtually anything. We see them all over, as long as it's not an investment company with very few employees and lots of assets. But if it's a regular operating company, it's going to be a great client. A company that wants to cultivate employee engagement, wants their employees to really care about how well they do, has that orientation, is really just going to strengthen that by establishing an ESOP, because that's the other half of the ESOP. Is the first half being an owner able to take the money off the table. The second half is the fact that now you've got employees who have a stake in this company and really are going to want it to succeed. So how do you tap that motivation to build a stronger company than ever? So those are the companies when both of those things are going. You have an owner who wants to pull some money out, and they also want to engage their employees. You've got a great fit.
And it sounds like, so emotionally, on an emotional level, I really connect to the idea that as a business owner, you reward many of the people that helped you get the company to the point in time where it is today by giving them back a piece of the company. What a great strategic owner, right? I would think.
Absolutely.
Or what an engaged owner that would be.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right?
Absolutely.
But it comes with the responsibility of really, I think, beginning to reframe how your employees think about the company and their relationship to it. It's not like a light switch, right?
No, not at all. You got to make sure they understand what the heck is going on. But when they get it, one of the great things is you see that they begin to expect more of each other. Used to be if an employee is goofing off and employee next door says, "Oh well, that's the boss's problem. I don't care if he's goofing off." Now it's the guy next door's problem, and he won't stand for it. So they raise their game because of peer pressure from each other. They owe it to each other.
All right, we're going to take our first commercial break here on Critical Mass Radio Show. As I said, we have two experts, and it's clear from the first segment. Hopefully, if you're listening to us live on octalkradio.net or as a podcast on iTunes or one of the other ones, that I do in fact have two people who really know what they're talking about. When we come back, I'm gonna delve a little bit into ESOPs as a succession strategy, and I'm gonna ask Martin to tell us why a firm would choose to use ESOP as a succession strategy after these words from our commercial sponsors.
If you are an Orange County CEO or a business owner, this message is for you. Do you ever feel isolated with no place to turn for advice or feedback? Who holds you accountable to your commitments in your company? Where do you find the right resources to help you and your company grow? If you have had these questions, then Critical Mass for Business might be the answer for you. Critical Mass for Business is committed to helping you make better decisions through the power of peer learning. These are groups of peers who are running businesses just like you. CEO Peer Groups provides a great sounding board to test fresh ideas and new concepts, review your strategic plans and tactical goals, and present issues and opportunities for a critical discussion. The result is improved strategy, accountability, and improved business results. If you are interested in learning more, go to www.criticalmassforbusiness.com and learn about our CEO Peer Groups. CEO Peer Groups is a registered trademark of Critical Mass for Business.
Richard Franzi is the author of 2 popular business books for CEOs. His first book, Critical Mass, The 10 Explosive Powers of CEO Peer Groups, was the first book ever written on the secret value of CEO peer groups. His second book, now with newly updated information, is Critical Mass, The Power of CEO Guiding Principles. Richard's books contain powerful information to help CEOs running middle market companies gain valuable insight to improve their decision-making skills. Richard's books are available as paperbacks or Kindle versions from Amazon.com. To find them, type Richard Franzi in the search box.
Successfully navigating the changing world of public relations and digital marketing requires an experienced, tenacious, yet gracious team. In business for more than 20 years, Orange County-based T & Company delivers big agency results with personalized service. For more information, call us at 714-536-8407 or visit us online at tandco.me.
Are you ready to tap into the power of social media to promote your business? It's easy to get social with Turn Up the Volume, the award-winning social media marketing professionals who know how to get results. Drive web traffic, boost sales, get social today. Visit www.turnupthevolume.com. That's turnupthevolume.com.
Here we go. Welcome back to Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Rick Franzi. This is our special edition. This is our roundtable. One thing that we're going to be doing each month is a focused roundtable. This month here, we're doing it on ESOPs, and we're titling this one ESOP 101 with Keith Molchan, who is First Vice President with Community Bank, and Martin Staubus, who's Executive Director with Beister. I'd like to thank and acknowledge our listeners who download our show as a podcast. You've downloaded and listened to over 17,000 episodes during the last 30 days. We here at the radio program appreciate your continued and growing support. All of our shows can be heard anytime on iTunes, Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com, several hundred former guest websites whose CEO has been on our show, and they've decided to place their interview on their company's website, as well as other business-oriented podcasting services. All right, Martin, before the break, I was going to ask you to start to answer this question. Why would an individual, a CEO, choose ESOP as a succession strategy?
Oh, Rick, I tell you, there's so many reasons why I would. Let me just give you my top 3. The first is, frankly, price. This is not something you do at a sacrifice. Under the right conditions, you meet a few requirements, pretty easy to meet. You can actually sell your stock of your company, and you can permanently avoid paying the capital gains taxes that come with that. So depending on what state you're in, California and other places, you're looking at a third of your proceeds disappearing to taxes these days. You sell to an ESOP, you can avoid that, and what that amounts to is that's a 50% premium over the ordinary fair market value. You're not going to find many people who are going to offer you 50% more than a business appraiser says your company's really worth on the market.
Okay, so I have to interrupt you. Why is that legal?
It's legal because there's a provision of a tax code. Section 1042 of the tax code specifically provides for this. And it says that you sell the stock. There's a wonderful arrangement where you've got 12 months to take your money, reinvest it in any other kinds of stocks or bonds of any American operating companies, and they will treat it as though it was a non-taxable exchange of your stock for whatever you bought in its place. So you've paid no taxes. If you had a company you're going to sell $10 million worth of stock, you end up with $10 million. In order to end up with $10 million any other way, you'd have to sell it for $15 million, lose a third of it to taxes, then you've got your $10 million.
Right.
Sell it to your employees for $10 million, you're doing just as well. So that's one big driver. You're likely to get a better price than any other deal. Second reason I'd say, one of the great things an ESOP offers is the fact that you can sell any portion of the company. It's not an all or nothing deal. You go to almost any other potential buyer in the market and they say, oh, your company's for sale, I'll buy it or I won't buy it. I don't want to buy 30% or 40% or whatever. Sell me your company or don't.
Right.
With an ESOP, one of the tremendous things it brings to the table is that an ESOP will buy whatever you offer it. So we have a lot of owners who are in this horns of a dilemma where they're reaching a certain age and they realize, hey, this business is 80% of my personal net worth, and I'm at an age where if suddenly something happened to it, heaven forbid, I'm in big trouble. I can't go back and recreate it.
Mm-hmm.
My financial advisor's saying I should sell the company, take that money off the table, and reinvest it and secure things. I'll be set for life. And I can see what he's saying, but it's still my baby. I love my company. Don't really want to walk away from it. Hey, take a third, 40%, half the company, take that money off the table, sell it to the ESOP where it goes to your employees. Now you got enough money that you're economically secure and you continue to run the company.
Right.
So that's a tremendous advantage that you can sell a portion of a company.
You continue to run the company and you don't necessarily introduce anybody new into the company like an outside buyer who has a voice and an opinion, right? You can still run the company with your employees the way you did up to that point.
Exactly. You keep going. One of the beautiful things about an ESOP is that the stock goes into this retirement plan, but the stock is controlled not by the employees but by a trustee you appoint. So you don't have to worry that they're somehow going to take over or whatever. They truly do get every last dollar of financial benefit. They're going to get that. They're going to benefit from this thing financially, but you don't have to worry that they're suddenly going to start telling you how to run the company.
Well, Martin, any more?
Well, I guess the last thing would be the third. I guess there's more, but my top three. The third would be the fact that you keep your company intact. You sell it any other way, and then likely you're going to find some big strategic buyer, some big out-of-state operation. They're going to come in, going to pretty much shred up your company, lay off about 30 of your people, take the name off the door. The whole thing's gone. This baby that you've spent most of your life building up and creating is basically kind of shredded up. With an ESOP, the whole thing stays intact. You give your employees the chance to run this thing. You can ultimately, when you want to, when you're ready, and if you want to, you can ultimately sell all the stock. Finally, you might sell it in increments. And now you've given your people, the company, a chance to run this thing completely, and it stays intact. It's probably got your name still on it. Everybody's still there. You've left a legacy.
So the three things you said is, one, there's a serious tax advantage. Two, you can sell increments of the company. And three, you keep your company intact.
Exactly.
Well, those are powerful three, and there are more behind that, but we're just going to stay at the top three. So, Keith, from your experience at Community Bank working with companies that are going through ESOPs, can you add from your direct experience other reasons why or observations that you've made?
Well, I've seen where a principal will have real direct loyalty to his employees and may not have a family succession that he could put together for the operation of the business, and so he loves to just get out there and get the employees enthused and keep that company going, like you say, for a legacy. I've seen that.
So the loyalty to the stakeholder that is the employee over any other stakeholder.
Well, they say, hey, I got here because of them,
right?
And I want to reward them now,
right?
And I've seen that.
And so I would think that the bank is very comfortable, obviously, with that mentality, as well as these other reasons that Martin had talked about for reasons why people come and want to use an ESOP as a succession plan.
That's very important.
Right. I would think from another perspective, as an outside investor, at least from someone who now has risk, right? Because you put money into the business, you want your money back, that type of purchase, you still have all the same players. That's
key. And as I said earlier about sustainable cash flow,
right,
that's an important part to keep that sustainable cash flow, because the selling principal has a stake in it as well, because most times when you put these together, it's a 30 or a 50% buyout the first round.
Okay, so that's common from what you've seen. People aren't selling 100% of the business. They're
not
selling
very
in
often.
parts, as Martin was saying, which
not
is an advantage
often.
of an ESOP. Okay.
So the selling principal will have a note that he'll carry back on that. And so he's your partner in the deal,
right,
for time to come. And having him involved, it does give you that comfort that you're going to have that cash flow continue as it has in the past.
Right, because I think it's risky at any time in a business when you make changes, right? You replace the founder with somebody else. I mean, you lose a key executive, whatever. You have a new investor or buyer come in. So the less you can reduce the risk, the more likely you are to have it be successful.
Correct.
And it sounds like in the process that you guys have just talked about, you're not changing as many variables as you might using another succession strategy.
Exactly. You can make the transition gradual, which is highly effective, rather than the owner going full tilt and then all of a sudden just drops everything, walks away, and somebody's got to pick up the pieces. You have an owner who takes it on himself as kind of his mission to say, I want to phase this over. I'm going to sell a chunk to the employees, start training them, mentor some top guys to be my successor over as they get ready and they can handle it. I'm going to step back, delegate more, step back. At some point, maybe I'll even step down as CEO and just be chairman of the board. And eventually, when I'm ready to sell the last piece, I'll sell the last piece and slip out the back door. Nobody will even notice I'm gone.
So, Martin, can the owner say, okay, I'm going to sell part of it now and I'm going to sell the balance around this time frame, but can they not change their mind, but can they move it in or move it out based
Absolutely.
on... Absolutely. They're not formally required
You're never locked
to sell.
in.
Okay.
It's always a plan written in pencil.
Okay.
So you have a plan. I often like to work with a lot of companies who like the idea of a program I put together called it just the 5-year plan. So the deal is that an owner will sell half their company up front, and then over a 5-year period, they're doing two things. They're paying down the debt involved in financing that first purchase.
Right.
And the other thing they're doing is they're doing this mentoring process.
Right.
So that they're building up the skills of their successor. They've identified somebody who's going to be pegged to take over as CEO. They do that transition gradually as they're ready. At the end of 5 years, the owner sells the other half of his company and, as I say, walks out the back door, and these guys keep it going without a hiccup at all.
Or they could stay on as chairman of the board.
They
don't have to walk out the back door like goodbye forever,
It's
like they would if they sold it to a third party, right? There's probably still a role for them as an emeritus or in some capacity.
I'm sure that people would love to have them remain as an advisor, be on the board, be a consultant, whatever makes sense. It's very flexible.
So we have about a minute left before the next break. So Keith, in your experience, 5 years sounds really makes a lot of sense to me. That's kind of good time horizon. Then does Community Bank come in the second time and say, okay, then you fund that, you loan for that second
That's
purchase?
correct.
Okay.
It's good for the bank. It's a way for us to continue a flow of putting new loans on the books, and if it's been a success for the first 5 years, you've got a great track record with the operation. So.
Right. So that's why that banking relationship is so important, right? Because you want to, you're going to need them again, and you want all the parties on the. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you both are here. We have Keith Molchan, who's first vice president with Community Bank, and Martin Staubus, who is the executive director for Beister Institute. We're going to take our second commercial break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about at what point in a firm's life does the business owner, or does it make sense for the business owner to look at ESOP as an exit strategy? So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back to answer the question when, after these words from our sponsors.
Award-winning photographer David Moyle has more than 16 years of experience creating unique and riveting photography for his clients. Whether your business is an international corporation or a small business, David Moyle's photography can make you stand out. Visit www.davidmoyle.com or call 714-272-2284. Are you ready to tap into the power of social media to promote your business? It's easy to get social with Turn Up the Volume, the award-winning social media marketing professionals who know how to get results. Drive web traffic, boost sales. Get social today. Visit www.turnupthevolume.com. That's turnupthevolume.com.
UPS Protection has been protecting systems in the U.S. against brownouts, blackouts, and poor quality power for over 25 years. We provide power protection systems, including UPS, lighting inverters, generators, and service for clients from coast to coast. We specialize in solving all your power needs. As a direct reseller of the best brands in the industry, including Liebert, PowerWare, and APC, we can solve all your power protection needs. Protecting your power is our main goal. We offer on-site or depot repair of our critical equipment. To better serve your budget constraints, UPS Protection also offers both reconditioned and new products.
And welcome back to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Rick Franzi. Martin Staubus, Executive Director with Beisler Institute, and Keith Molchan, First Vice President of Community Bank, are my guests. Our audience demographic is 98% business owners and executives who listen to learn from the experience and knowledge of our guests. If your firm is interested in reaching these top decision makers, then advertising on the radio show is the answer. Each month, our sponsors gain valuable exposure through their support of our program. And with our exclusive prospect engagement program, we deliver 24 warm prospects to each advertiser each year. To learn more, contact Rose Chamora, 951-515-4661. That's 951-515-4661. All right, before the break, Martin, I said I was going to ask you to answer the second question, which is, from a timing perspective, you set a 5-year horizon from when you start, but at what point would you advise CEOs and business owners to consider ESOP as an exit strategy?
Right. That is really dictated by what an ESOP can do for you. And to really boil it down, there are really two things that an ESOP offers. One is, as we've talked about, a very attractive way to liquidate this theoretical monetary value your stock has. The other is the way to really engage and motivate your employees. So if you put those two together, it can be very appealing for an owner who's maybe not ready to retire next week, but might reach a point where he said, this probably might be a good idea to get my people that much more motivated, that much more engaged. I'm at a point where maybe I've worked really, really hard on this thing now, and I'm being told my business is finally worth something. Maybe it's time to treat my family to a little something. Let's take a little money off the table, and at the same time establish this employee stock program. So where I might take a quarter or a third of the company or something, pull that off the table, get this program going, and now I really, it's important to really explain it to the employees, and so they really get it. And once they do that, the employees take off and they run, and your company's growing faster and be more productive than ever. So I have owners I've talked to a number of times. I've heard that story where I help an owner to set one of these things up. We talk to the valuation appraiser, says your company's worth $10 million. He says, okay, I'll sell a third of it. Mm-hmm. A few years later, he comes back and says, I think I'd like to sell some more. Let's see what the appraiser says now. So we asked the appraiser, so what's the company used to be worth $10 million. Now I've got two-thirds of it. What's my two-thirds worth? And the appraiser says, about $10 million. Wait a minute, I had $10 million when I had the whole thing. Yeah, but it's grown so successfully, just two-thirds of it is worth $10 million now. So that's the kind of experience you want to be looking for, is to be able to build the performance of your company. Yeah. So at the same time, you get more performance and you don't have to work so hard as the owner.
It sounds like a growth strategy then.
Exactly. So it's both a growth strategy, and it can transition from early on. It's more growth, less liquidation, and over time you can transition to more liquidation and becomes your way to phase out.
Wow. That's exciting. Keith, in your direct experience in working with companies who are going through an ESOP, you're funding them and helping them get through it. Is this your experience too, that the culture change gives it a growth opportunity for a company?
At just about every opportunity that I've worked with, it's turned out that way. And the only time that I found it didn't turn out that way is if it were a fad type business.
Okay.
It doesn't carry that cash flow like I keep going back to.
Right.
Because as I say to the bank, that's the most important thing, to make sure that it's successful for us and the selling shareholder.
Right. But how exciting is that then? Because you're working with a company that the succession plan leads to short-term and then long-term growth.
Oh, for sure. No, it's a perfect avenue for the bank to go down with these companies.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of these companies that I work with are very, very seasoned companies. So it's so rewarding to help them achieve this. It really helps your your inside feelings,
right,
of your accomplishments.
Right. Martin, it sort of takes a company and makes it new again at some level. Is what I'm hearing from you two guys.
Yeah, it brings a new level of excitement. It's just I hear it so often from owners who've done this that they enjoy being in their company so much more. In the past, they win a new piece of business and they play, oh, that's cool. Now they win a big new contract, and people are literally, they're high-fiving in the hallways. Awesome, man, we just pushed our revenue by 10% in that one contract, and they get it and they appreciate it. And it's, the owner has somebody to celebrate with. If they lose the contract, then I don't know how it helps the business necessarily, but the owner feels better knowing that there's other people tossing and turning at night and losing sleep over this problem. Right. So the fact that people are actually sharing, they're thinking like the business owner, and you've got partners who really got your back.
Right. And I would think, as you're talking, that we said in the last segment, you just don't flip a switch. I don't know that the average employee comes in the next day, even if they have 30% of the company, and really understands what that means to them. So, Martin, can you share a little bit with sort of your best practice of when is it and how do you kind of help them to become more aware of what's happening?
Absolutely. That's a critical piece of this. There's so much potential in the employees sharing the ownership to motivate them, but it's not magic pixie dust. You don't talk to Martin Staubus and talk to some lawyer and get the banker to finance it, and presto, it just automatically happens by itself. As you sort of implying, the average the American citizen doesn't really get a business education, and they don't teach it in high school,
right,
in college. Unless you take a business class, you don't get it. So your employees, even highly educated employees, really don't understand how business works. But if you put a little effort into the return, and I've seen owners who, in the early days, without much of experience and somewhat naively, work with the consultant, the lawyers, set it up, they sit back and wait for some great transformation, and they're disappointed. But those who put in the effort to educate their employees, explain how this works, so they get to the point they kind of understand how they get such a payoff on that when they make that effort.
I would think that one of the things you have to address is the perception by the employees of, I've just taken on some risk, right? Because I think traditionally you think, well, if you're a business owner, you get the rewards, but you also take the risk. There's a liability here for it. And how would you suggest they address that, and is that in fact true?
There's a very low risk for employees because they're not paying for it out of their pockets. So they're not directly paying for it. They may have some offsetting cuts in some other employee benefits to help support this. So they give something for this, and I think it's just about the right thing. If they have to pay too much, they might be terrified,
right,
paralyzed. If they give nothing at all, they got no skin in the game. It's like, oh well, didn't work out. This way, they put something into it. They see it's a tremendous deal. They're clearly getting a tremendous deal. They're making minor cutbacks in some other benefits, some sort of 401k matching funds, those kinds of things they might be having cutbacks in exchange, getting a significant piece of the company. So they're going to be jazzed, they're going to be excited, and they're going to see the upside, and they're handed an annual statement that this is what you got. So every employee says, maybe I'm an average employee, I got, $32,000 worth of stock? We screw it up, I'm going to lose that. We do things right, I'm going to double it.
Right.
So it starts to work really well when the employees are looking at it that way.
Is that what you're finding too, Keith, as community banks see the importance of getting the employees to share in the idea of the ownership?
Well, I'm proud to say that we've been successful on every one that we put together.
Okay.
So I think that is showing that they jump in there and give it their all and make sure that they're going to continue to be an owner in the company.
One of the areas that I think is particularly important is to begin to teach your employees financial literacy as it relates to owning a business. And I would think that the bank could be a helpful player in that, because many employees aren't comfortable reading an income statement or a balance sheet or a statement of cash flows, and I would think that might be something that the bank could help your clients with if they want you to.
That's a great idea, Rick. I've never thought about that angle. We usually just get involved with the management of the financing, of structuring, and making sure that it all comes together so it's a successful sale. But that's a great idea.
Yeah, because knowing how a company makes money, what's the process that we go through, that where does the magic happen, is really important for employees, because then they begin to realize what doesn't make you money, which can be waste. And they can see waste much better in a company than the executives can, right?
Absolutely. They're involved in every corner of the business, and there's no way the owner can be supervising every last detailed way all the employees can. And you're absolutely right. They have to be able to understand those basics of an income statement. The average employee doesn't have that exposure. There's really two steps to really achieving the potential of this. And one is, first you motivate them by showing how they have ownership. And they go, oh, great, I have ownership. Now I want to see the stock price go up. But that alone doesn't get you very far if they don't know what they can do.
Right.
They're like a bystander in the stands watching a game. I'm hoping the team wins, but you want them to be a player in the game. So you have to teach them how the game works, and the basic magic is in the income statement.
Right.
So I've done that. I've walked through, taken employees, walking through, and I show them all the money we get only comes from one source. What's that? I ask them, and they finally figure out, oh, customers. That's where all our money comes from. They say, where does it go? And I walk them through all the things we spend it on the leases and the equipment, and I show them, by the way, what's the biggest single thing it goes to? And they go, oh, payroll. Shoot, that's 60% of our money goes back out the door to our paychecks.
Right.
And take them all through that. I finally get, subtract all that. In the very last line, on the bottom line, here's what's left over. And I once had an employee go, oh, the bottom line. That's where that expression comes from. I hear people say the bottom line this, the bottom line that. I never knew where it came from. That's what they've never seen an income statement.
Right.
So they begin to think that way, and it becomes pretty simple. It's just some arithmetic, and they get into it. Oh, I got some ideas of where we can cut down these expenses here. I know where there's a cheaper source vendor I can find, and they start doing that stuff, and they start bringing their ideas to the table, and it really takes off.
Right, because, I mean, probably an extreme, not in a negative way, but a fully embraced version of that is open book management by Jack Stack, and the work that Jack did with his companies and still does with the firms to really educate financial literacy and operational literacy with their employees.
That's a tremendous, really robust program of employee education, so the employees become really sophisticated business people, in effect. And that company that's based on has grown something like 89,000% since it started in the 80s.
And it was going to go out of business.
They were
going to close that shop up because it wasn't making money, and the corporation didn't want to have it anymore. And he kept it going because he felt an obligation, if I remember correctly, to the employees.
Exactly.
Not for his own personal wealth as much as he just hated to see, because he was responsible for the plant and he didn't want to close on his watch.
Yeah, organized an employee buyout in 1986, and the rest is history. It's an amazing story.
But we're not talking about a management collective, right, when we talk about an ESOP.
There's nothing about an ESOP that changes what they call the corporate governance. There's still a board of directors. There's the board of directors still appoints a CEO. There's still management. And nothing about an ESOP change. All it matters, all that's different is the shareholder. There may be a new shareholder on the scene.
Right. You don't have the employees voting if we need a new forklift or that kind of things, right? I mean, they may voice an opinion about how to save money.
We want to involve the employees informally in these things. We want them to follow the action, come up with ideas, but they don't have some formal management authority.
Right.
We just want to engage them and have them contribute their ideas and their input.
Okay. Well, we're talking with Keith Molchan, who's the first vice president of Community Bank, and Martin Staubus, who's executive director with Beister Institute. We're going to take our third and final commercial break here on Critical Mass Radio Show. When we come back, we're going to spend time on the third part of the question, which is how. I mean, what steps does a business owner take, and must they take, to convert the firm into an ESOP? And so we'll be right back talking about the major milestones with Keith and Martin after these words from our commercial sponsors.
Let's face it, not all company challenges are the same, which is why Strategic Market Intelligence can help identify the actionable information you need to be more competitive. Gain a better understanding of your brand, competition, best prospects, or new product opportunities to generate greater revenues in 2015. Call 949-357-9547 or visit www.strategicmarketintelligence.com.
Richard Franzi is the author of 2 popular business books for CEOs. His first book, Critical Mass, The 10 Explosive Powers of CEO Peer Groups, was the first book ever written on the secret value of CEO peer groups. His second book, now with newly updated information, is Critical Mass, The Power of CEO Guiding Principles. Richard's books contain powerful information to help CEOs running middle-market companies gain valuable insight to improve their decision-making skills. Richard's books are available as paperbacks or Kindle versions from Amazon.com. To find them, type Richard Franzi in the search box. Today's businesses are embracing voice-over IP telephones and unified communication desktop technologies to more effectively communicate and collaborate with their customers, suppliers, and colleagues. The Reliatel management software from Tone Software Corporation helps organizations of all sizes manage their communications technologies to ensure great voice quality and better levels of service and reliability throughout their business. Through Reliatel, you'll gain higher return on investments from VoIP and unified communications technologies while lowering the associated operational support and maintenance costs. Learn more. Visit www.tonesoft.com or call 800-833-8663 for information on Reliatel by Tone Software, the solution for quality business communications.
Time is just flying by today here on Critical Mass Coast to Coast Critical Mass Radio Show. Sorry, I'm Rick Franzi. I am your host, and I would like to thank and acknowledge our listeners who download our show as a podcast. You've listened to over 17,000 episodes during the last 30 days, and we here at the program appreciate your continued and growing support. Of course, all of our shows can be heard anytime on Apple iTunes, Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com, hundreds of former guests' websites, and other business-oriented podcasting services. If you want to become a regular subscriber to our show and a podcast, go into your favorite podcasting software, type these 4 words, Critical Mass Radio Show, and up will come our icon. You can subscribe to it, and you'll get our weekly updates of our shows. All right, Martin Staubus, who is the Executive Director for Beister Institute, Keith Molchan, who's First Vice President of Community Bank. We're in our third and final sector of the radio show, and this is our how segment. So let's start with you, Martin. I mean, what are the steps that a business owner, how complicated is it to go from not being an ESOP to having an ESOP company?
Well, I'll tell you, relative to the alternatives, it's actually pretty simple. I think a business owner has never sold a company, is kind of hoping, maybe believing that at some point somebody will come up to and offer to write him a big check, hand him a check and say, here's your money, I'll take the company. That doesn't actually happen. That's not one of the choices. There is no simple, easy, inexpensive way to sell a company unless you want to give it away for nothing. So given the relative choices of how you do it, it's actually inexpensive and relatively simple process. One of the best things about it that makes it so relatively simple and easy is that there's no actual adversarial party across the table from you, like any other buying situation where the buyer shows up with an army of attorneys and investment bankers at his back, and he used to be talking to you nice when they're having general discussions, and now it's getting serious, and all of a sudden he's putting all kinds of fine print in terms and conditions. With an ESOP, there's nobody across the table. As an owner, you just decide to make this happen. You set it up. There's certain rules you have to comply with, and beyond that, you decide when you want to do it, how much you want to sell. The rules provide, as a requirement, you hire a professional business appraiser who will come in, study the company, and tell you what's it really worth on the market, and that sets the price. And
that's a very important moment, though, right? Because people are wanting to make sure that is a fair transaction.
Exactly. And the price is no different from the ESOP than anything else. When we have the appraiser come in, we're asking this appraiser essentially one question, and that is, if this company were put up for sale in the general investor market and notified the whole world this company's for sale, what do you think we could get for it? And the appraiser goes out and does his homework and his studies and analyzes the market and the company, and then ultimately comes back as an expert and says, I predict this is what you get for it. Okay, that's what the ESOP will pay.
Okay, so that fair market value might be different than what a strategic investor would pay for it, though, right?
Right. There are cases, they're not common, otherwise it would be market value, but there are exceptions where there's a particular buyer who sees special value in your company, special to that one buyer. You've got a product line that'll perfectly complement his, where he's got a hole in it, or a geographic area he's going to fill, where he's willing to pay more than the company would normally be worth. So that's possible, but first of all, they aren't common. Secondly, they usually aren't, the premium you get for that usually is not as high as 50%. And we talked at the top of the show about the tax advantage that equates to a 50% premium. So you're unlikely, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's very rare to get a higher price on the after-tax basis once you factor in the ESOP.
Okay.
So in terms of a process, for getting that, it's such a nice process because you don't have that adversarial buyer. The pricing is no longer, you don't have to fight and negotiate. It's just settled, and you decide where and when and how much to do this. And so that's a great thing. In terms of the process of making it happen, we take people usually through a series of 4 phases of the process.
Okay.
And we're always happy to sit down and talk with any owner, a conversation like this, to explain and discuss it. If they really want to get a systematic, serious look at what an ESOP might look like, we'll do what's known in the trade, so to speak, as a feasibility study. That's basically to collect all your financial data. We can get a good understanding of your company, your personnel data, and we can put together a picture, and we'll have a lot of dialogue and figure out what's probably the best path, at least on a preliminary basis. What makes sense? What do you want to do? Should we sell 25%, sell 50%, sell the whole thing? We can then do an analysis and present a picture through financial analysis, a picture of how this would play out. What would the effects be? How would it impact the company's profits? How would it impact your cash flow? What kind of financing would it take? How would it impact the employees? Basically, it's designed to put all the information on the table that an owner is going to need to make a final go or no-go decision.
Because sorry to interrupt you, but that's where, because one of the things is when you take on that debt, if that's how you're choosing to buy out the owner for the first tranche, the company now has that debt on their books, so they're not the same company they were before. So I would think their valuation it reflects that a little bit, right? Because they're perceived to be a little more risky because they have this outstanding obligation they didn't have before the transaction.
Exactly. The company effectively takes on debt in doing this ESOP, and that's going to impact the value. But that doesn't impact the company until after the sale. So
Okay.
it doesn't reduce the owner's price. The owner sells at the pre-debt price.
Okay.
Then there's a debt which is paid off in a few years, and then its value springs back higher than ever, presumably.
But then the second year, because every year you have to revalue the firm, right? That's part
So
of the...
you have an annual update to the valuation, and that way everybody knows how well we're doing.
Okay.
You know,
So the independent appraiser may look at that and go, well, now you're a little bit less valuable because you're carrying all this debt.
Correct.
Right.
You got to
so
work it off.
You'll see what the appraisers call a post-transaction drop
Right.
in the value because of the debt, and then as the debt shrinks, as it's paid, then that post-transaction debt, that post-transaction value climbs back up.
And you, Community Bank, Keith, you're comfortable with that because you know, based on your experience, that might happen or that's likely going to happen,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, that's where we're going to get involved just about at the end of what Martin's talking about. When all of his analysis is done and evaluation is in, and that's when the bank would start getting involved with it.
Okay.
You're right.
So who ultimately picks the price? Because if I understand it right, the valuation is a range, isn't it? The independent guy comes in and go, well, you get a range? Or do they give you the exact dollar?
They will give you an exact dollar. They'll usually
They will.
start with a range and ultimately work toward an exact dollar.
Okay.
There's some flexibility there. It depends on how you want to approach it. Having an ESOP, going back to the very first comments that technically it's a qualified retirement plan, all qualified retirement plans operate as trusts. So people often don't even pay attention to it. But a 401k plan, all the 401k assets, all those investments are in a trust. An ESOP operates as a trust. Where there's a trust, there's a trustee. So one of your things you'll be doing as an owner is decide who do you want to have as the trustee. And you can have an internal person do it. It's in your company. You can hire an outside professional. They're the ones who are going to ultimately sign a stock sale contract. Lawyer will drop a stock sale contract. You as owner sign as the seller. Who signs as the buyer? Well, this trustee signs on behalf of the ESOP. That trustee has the obligation to confirm that the price does not exceed fair market value.
Okay.
How does he do that? This appraiser essentially is an advisor to the trustee, telling him that price, I'll stand behind that price as not exceeding fair market value, or I won't stand behind it.
Okay. And in your experience, internal, external trustee?
Yeah, you can do it either way.
That may be a subject for a different show.
Yeah.
But what have you seen? Is there a predominance
It's
either way?
roughly half and half.
It
Depends
is.
on size. The larger the company, the more the more money involved. If you're going to ask to be a trustee of a $50 million ESOP, makes an average individual a little nervous. Maybe let's pay an outsider. If it's a $5 million ESOP, well, I can handle that. So it tends to, on average, I say it's around 50-50, but it skews
towards the bigger
one way or the
companies.
other, depending on the...
From a bank's perspective, does it matter?
Bank, we like outside.
You do?
Yes.
Why?
We like outside just because it's removed from the company.
Okay.
Just removed from the company. It's not somebody within that's working it.
Okay. So that we heard from the bank's perspective.
Right.
And anything else in the how, Martin, that we haven't talked
in
about?
terms of the how, well, in terms of the cast of players, you ultimately need to pull this off. Once you make that final decision, let's go for it. Then we would assemble a team of people. So you're going to first decide on a trustee who that's going to be. That allows you to hire the appraiser to get that last piece in place, so knowing for sure what you're likely to get for this thing. You need an attorney with specialized skills to do that. So those are really sort of the three players: the trustee and the appraiser and the attorney.
Great.
Finally, at the end, to operate on an ongoing basis, you have what they call a third-party administrator, just like 401k plans or whatever have these third-party administrators that do all the record keeping and federal form filing, all the administration for you. So that's the cast of characters. We would help put that team together and ultimately work toward closing day where stock and money change hands. And
Wow.
everybody has a little party.
Well, my engineer's telling me we have just a minute left, so I think we've covered a lot of ground here in an hour, and I need to thank both of you. If someone, I'll start with you, Keith. If someone would like to learn about Community Bank and their ESOP program, maybe in particular, how do they find you? How do they find the bank online?
K Molchan, MOLCHAN at cbank, like catbank.com. Or our website is www.cbank.com.
And you have a white paper. Is that?
It's not on the. I can
But
get
you
the white paper.
could you send it to them if they
Sure.
wanted to read your white paper?
I sure could.
Okay, I would recommend that. That's good preliminary reading. And I know the Beister Institute, having attended one of your in-person courses, and I know tomorrow will be on your online for your online coursework. You do a lot of work to educate people about ESOPs, in person or online. How do people learn more about what the Beister Institute's about, Martin?
Probably the best place to start is just go to our website, which is, I could explain it again, we're part of the University of California, San Diego, that's UCSD, part of their Rady Business School. Rady is R-A-D-Y, so we're simply at rady.ucsd.edu/Beister. That's B-E-Y-S-T-E-R.
Which is a gentleman who led a company, SAIC, and he gave an endowment or something to UC for this.
He started the group. He didn't name it for himself. He was a very modest guy.
Did.
We changed the name later. I have to always give that disclaimer that. But yes, he started a company in 1969, started from scratch, and 30 years later was a Fortune 500 size company called SAIC.
In San Diego.
Started in San Diego, grew worldwide, and $8 billion in revenue, and it was all based on the fact that the employees there all shared in the ownership, so it was the ultimate growth strategy, and he's the one who got our group going. So that's the Beister name.
This ownership does scale.
It scales. The largest ESOP company I know of is a large supermarket chain based out of Florida called Publix Supermarkets.
Oh, sure.
Highest rated. Every customer survey says cleanest stores, friendliest employees, 165,000 employees.
Wow.
ESOP company.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, we're going to have you guys back. Would you come back?
Great.
All right.
Happy to.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to us live on octalkradio.net, tell your friends that if they would like to learn more about ESOPs, this show will be available tomorrow on iTunes and off my website and a variety of other places. I'm sure we're going to be giving the link to these gentlemen. Hopefully they'll be making it available to their business community too. But this is just the first in a series of roundtables on ESOPs that I'm planning to host throughout the year and the coming years. So I want to thank you both for giving of your time to be here in the studio today.
My pleasure.
Yep,
Thank you, Rick.
Truly enjoyed it, and I want to thank you and our listening audience for spending the time. Don't forget to tell some friends if you want to. We're all about to help you improve your decision-making skills, and I think in this area we've hit the mark today because of my guest. This show is brought to you by our advertisers: Center Club, Community Bank, Decision Toolbox, Executives Unlimited, MBN Design, S&H Rubber, Strategic Market Intelligence, Sunup Group, T & Company, Tone Software, Turn Up the Volume, and UPS Protection. Our engineer for today was Paul Roberts. Our producer is Crystal Nunley, and I'm your host, Rick Franzi, hoping that all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.